Hey guys, Graeme straight off road. Just want to talk to you about a few issues that we've had with the toilets. As we sort of go through this list today, if there's any questions, we will be writing this down for you so that you can see it in the newsletter later on. First one is the water. Why aren't we getting water into the toilet? Well, there's a few reasons why that doesn't happen. We've got to basically get to the underlying issue first before we even start. Has the van been sitting for any time without the pump being turned over? That's a biggie, because most people don't do that. They don't sort of go in there once a month and turn it over, which then the water will seep back, which means it loses its prime. Once it loses its prime, then we've sort of got to basically bleed the toilet out there to get that water working. Putting the water on the outside of the toilet part doesn't work. There is two parts to the toilet pump, an input side and an output side. Input side is where the water draws in, goes up to the top of the bowl and then filters down. The output is going out of the toilet into your black tank at the front. We are going to do a video on how to prime the toilet, which will be the next one, but at this stage we're just sort of getting to the bottom of it. The water, there's another one, the water not going out when you push the button. Is it a blockage? Is it, we've got 4 parts of our vans that can have blockage points. We have a U-bend, we have non-return valves, and there's quite a fair bit going on inside the plumbing side of it. The right-hand side of the rear, there's a U-bend. You got to check for kinks there. Like, that's one of our big things, that if we don't check for kinks there, then it could potentially be a blockage. We do have a non-return valve in the base of the toilet, which, potentially, if we've sort of like done our businesses and it gets stuck in there, is a potential for a blockage there as well. The next one is the non-return valve. We do have a non-return valve from the toilet to the actual black tank so that it doesn't go back up when you're flushing. There's another potential for it there as well. So there's multiple places that it can be. And the last but not least, I forgot about this one, is the one that actually goes into the black tank at the front. Now, sometimes if we don't hold the button long enough, you've got to remember these things have got to travel at least 10 meters for the water to go back into the black tank. So if you're not holding the button long enough, it's not going to be able to be flushed from the back of the toilet to the front of the van. So a good 10-second flush every time will get rid of all that sort of stuff and eliminate most of those blockages. The other one we have is water not staying in the bowl after we've driven for a while. Now, we've got a couple of different places that can be a problem. One is the duct valve, where it hasn't been cleaned. First people will go is, I don't know about a duct valve. Yes, there is a duct valve in the system, which, so like, as the water goes through the toilet and into the black tank, it's got to have a place where it can vent so the water can actually stay in the toilet bowl whilst you're sort of like driving along. Now, to clean that will be another video that we'll need to sort of like show you where it is, and so that you can identify it and how to clean it. Because if we don't do that, this is another problem. The next problem with the that scenario as well is if we've overfilled our tank, we'll end up blocking up our carbon filter at the front. Now, if the carbon filter at the front is blocked, every time you drive, it'll literally will vacuum through this water straight out and into your black tank. So there's another way that we can sort of like check that carbon filter that it hasn't been overflowed. Now, I get often told that we haven't overfilled it, which I believe, because I don't doubt that. But what happens is sometimes when we don't flush it properly, it creates the problem. So if we're not holding it, making sure our manual vents are open, when we flush our systems for the last time, you will overflow it into the charcoal filter and you will block your charcoal filter. And so the potential there is great. The next one is the water doesn't come into the bowl after the water tanks have been emptied. Some people like to empty their water tanks out, which is great. It's up to them, whichever way they do. I prefer to like let people know that to leave the water in their tanks, because that way so like the algae doesn't build up, and there's a few other things that like the heavy metals don't drop out and stuff like that. Now, if you have emptied out your tanks, the potential for the water to actually drain out your pipes is high. So what will happen is the first time you go out to use it, and most people don't check their toilet before they go out, so the first time they go to use it, there's no water coming in. Hence, blows fuses, gets jammed and all that sort of stuff. You need to bleed the toilet again. once again, refer back to that other video and that'll show you how to bleed the toilet. Preferably you check stuff before you go out, because the last thing you want to do is be able to sort of go out there, you're all set up, you go to use the toilet and there's no water. The first person to ring is me, which is good. I haven't got a problem with that, but at the end of the day, if we can do a bit of preventive maintenance, it would be really good. Push button and nothing happens. Okay, the motor's seized up, the impeller may be stuck on the inside of the pump. The only fix we can do with this is we need to turn the shaft at the back. Now, at the back of the pump, there is a shaft that you can get to that can release the actual impeller against the wall of the pump. We do have spanners now that we've made up. One of our guys has made up some spanners for us so that we can actually access the back of the pump. It is quite tight there. We have to use as much room to get it back to as far as we can to the back of the wall, which gives us no room to be able to get screwdrivers or anything down there. But we do have spanners that are available. We sell them for about $45 or $45 I think they are, plus your freight obviously, to get these pumps working again. Ideally, you have one of those in your van, so if this does become a problem, you have that option to be able to do it. Because once that seizes up, it is going to blow the fuses and it is going to be a problem for you. Now, until the pump is wet, it's still going to blow those fuses. So you've actually got to bleed that system out, get the water back in there so that the pump can actually physically turn. So the next one is push button when the motor dies. Basically, usually, once again, impellers seized up due to either lack of use or sometimes it just run out of water. So the idea, prime the pump. Once we prime the pump, we get our water back into the system again, change that fuse, try it again, it should just about go for you. All right, push button and blows the fuse. Okay, so the same thing again, it is going back to that whole priming situation where the water isn't in the pump, so it is stuck. So yeah, once again, do the whole priming thing, do the release on the back of the impeller, and it should come good for you. Misconception of these pumps. Okay, so understanding of your pump. The biggest problem that we have is people that actually don't understand how these pumps work. There is two parts to the system, which I've already sort of spoken about that. The inside and the outside of the system. Putting water into the actually outside of it doesn't do anything to the impeller. All it does, it actually makes the motor worse. So what we've got to do is make sure that pump is wet. They are a wet pump. They will suck 3 meters when they're wet. They'll suck nothing when they're dry. So the idea is you have a wet pump, you get it working, and it will literally pull up. This system's only set up for the standard system. The recovery system is another system again, which we'll be doing its own video on that as well, because there's a little bit more in depth in what that is. The standard system draws from the rear tank. Not so much the recovery system, once again, that is a separate system. There is a 20-page extensive document that we'll put a link on our newsletter, where you can actually go in and so you can understand how the system actually works. One of our customers wrote it for us, which he's done a very, very good job in doing so, which, yeah, look, it just shows you how the system works, what you need to do if you have a problem. There is a bit of a manual on it, so ideally, have a good read of it, because it is 20 pages long and it will give you a good understanding on how these systems work. Without water, which is our crucial thing, these things just don't operate correctly. So make sure you check that out, because it is a very good read and a very good understanding on how these actually work. So hopefully that's answered a few questions. These are the common questions we get asked every day, sort of thing. I have the same conversations quite often, 3 or 4 times in a day. Hopefully these will educate you a little bit more, because we want you to enjoy your van as much as you enjoy your van. So hopefully this is all good. So we'll catch up later and we'll do the next one and go from there. Righto, good.